Good morning.
Good morning.
We're honored to have Mr. Patrick with us, and I believe you're running for Illinois 16 Democratic State Central Committee. Is that right?
You got it. That's correct.
Very good. Well, we're delighted to have you join us today, and we do have some questions that have been submitted from the community. We're going to get right to it because we know time is of the essence. The first question, what actually inspired you to run for this office?
For this particular office, a couple things inspired me. We have a couple state central committee people for the 17th district here in McLean County, Pam Davidson and State Representative Maurice West, that have been such an inspiration and a help to me as the chair of the McLean County Democrats. I wanted an opportunity to kind of return that favor, right? To take what they've taught me to do what they do, but in the 16th Congressional District. So that inspired me to run for this office. Another thing that inspired me was the fact that I could still be a chair of the McLean County Democrats and have this office. There are still things I want to accomplish here in McLean County, and this would allow me to do that, keep that work going while working with the other 20 counties throughout the district.
Thank you for that response. As a follow-up, what specific experiences have prepared you for this role?
I think being chair of the McLean County Democrats is probably the most vital experience that I can offer in this role. Under my leadership, we've flipped McLean County. When I first started, all of our elected offices were controlled by Republicans. And so since then, we now have a state representative, we have a state senator, we have a member of Congress that's now a Democrat. And of course, we flipped the McLean County board last year for the first time ever in history. We've built a huge coalition. We've reached out to lots of community groups. And we're really proud of that. And so I kind of want to take those efforts, that knowledge and that experience, and spread it throughout the district.
Hey, Patrick, another one of your constituents would like to know, what do you see as the top 3 issues facing our community right now?
Sure. Voter engagement and voter knowledge, I think, would be first and foremost. There are still many people who do not participate actively in the electoral process, especially younger folks. And so that's something I'm working really, really hard on doing. We're proud of the work we've done as a county party on campus at Illinois State University, at Illinois Wesleyan, and at Heartland Community College. But there's still a lot of folks who don't think politics has a spot for them. And so I think that's definitely a priority for me. I think expanding our coalition even further, I'm proud of the work we do in our community, but I think there's always room for improvement there. There are groups, there are organizations that we haven't really interacted with as much as I'd like to. So I think that would be a second priority. And the third priority is we need to do better at electing Democrats or progressives. We don't have a countywide official yet, and I think that's something we really need to work on, especially on the legal side of things. I'd like to see us get a progressive judge in McLean County, or a progressive state's attorney. I think that's an aspect of our local government that we ought to have a bigger say in, that we ought to have more influence in, that we don't have currently.
Yeah, and speaking of roadmaps and making sure you're making changes, how would you actually measure success?
That's a really good question. The easy way to say is how many Democrats do we have elected, right? But I think it also, again, in this job that I'm running for, in my job as chair, I think voter turnout, increasing voter turnout, voter participation would be big. In this upcoming primary elections, for instance, average voter turnout is very, very low. So I'm going to be watching that closely. I know I've been working very hard at engaging potential voters and trying to encourage them to come out and vote. So that's going to be, I think, a real good benchmark for me to see how well we're doing.
Now, are you in favor of raising, lowering, or maintaining the current tax rate, and why?
I would not be in favor of raising it. Lowering it is almost impossible. And it's awful hard to take away. When you've given governments and segments of governments a certain amount of tax revenue, it's awful hard to take that away. Now that would force them to cut back on some services that they've already promised people. So I guess my answer to that would be as much as we can to maintain the current tax rate.
Okay. Let's talk about housing affordability. How will you address housing affordability?
Well, there's a couple ways of doing it. I think you have to create a business environment that encourages construction companies and potential investors, make it as easy as possible for them to do their work, to build housing, and to do it as inexpensively as possible. I think our current housing problem in part is because the housing that's being built is so high priced that many people can't afford it. I spoke with the college Democrats at Illinois State University and mentioned I was going to see the governor the next day. And I said, instead of me lecturing you about what I think things ought to happen, you tell me what message can I pass along to our governor and our state government. And they mentioned that for the first time that they didn't think they were ever going to be able to afford a house. Now, that was heartbreaking to me, to see a young student just kind of try and face that fact that I may never own a home. And especially when you consider the historical importance of being a landowner, of being a property owner, and what that's meant throughout our history, to see an entire generation kind of face the fact that that may never be a reality for them was heartbreaking to me. So this definitely has to be a big priority. But I think we have to make things easier for companies to build those houses, to build the housing. And we have to make it easier for people to buy it, to be able to afford a loan, to do what they need to do to get into those homes.
I think over the last probably year or so, we've seen homelessness increase in the Bloomington-Normal area. How do you plan to address homelessness in and of itself locally?
That's a really good question. I think it requires a lot of conversations. I think it's something that no one party, no one organization, no one group can handle on their own. I think it's going to require a lot of input and a lot of contributions from the entire community. I like what they've done with the bridge project. I think that's a good first step, and it seems like it's working out pretty well in its early stages. So I think I would want to see more of that type of thing. I'm also cognizant of the fact there are some people that just don't want to be in what they would consider a restrictive environment, and that's okay too. But we need to find a way to make sure that when they need warmth, when they need food, when they need services, especially social services, especially mental health services or medical services, that we've got a way to provide that to them as well.
Thank you. Now we're going to talk about approaching policing and public safety.
Okay.
What is your philosophy associated with that? How should community members approach policing and that whole public safety aspect of it?
Sure. I think policing and public safety, again, needs to have a lot of community input. I know here in Bloomington we have an organization, a citizens group that does that work. I'd like to see that expanded. I'd like to see even more community involvement. I think we're very fortunate to have somebody like a Kyle Nowers, for instance, right, who does a great job of working out in the community, of making sure that he's approachable. I know when we've had some issues, even as Democrats at our headquarters in downtown Bloomington, my first call is always to somebody like Kyle Nowers. And I've had some good interactions that way. I'd like to see Kyle have more influence on our community policing. I'd like to see him be kind of our model for how that ought to work. I know lately it feels like he's been, for lack of a better word, hamstrung a little bit, and that upsets me, to be quite honest with you. And I think we need to take the opposite approach.
We have literally about 45 seconds left.
Okay.
So with this last question, how do you recommend your constituents get more involved in politics and in making change happen?
Sure. First thing you do is make sure you're registered to vote. Go vote. Because if you don't vote, then it's hard to complain when something happens that you don't have any control of. You have all the control in the world. And the second thing is find a candidate or a cause that interests you, and call them up and say, I want to help. Even if you can give them 5 hours, 10 hours a week, whatever you can. make sure you go help participate. Go to group things. McLean County Democrats have all kinds of community events. So come by, say hi, and say what you're willing to do.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Patrick, on behalf of the Bloomington-Normal NAACP branch and, of course, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Nu Psi Lambda chapter, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It was really good to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.